Alright, so what we're going to do in this one is we're going to build this gear and this little thing right there. Okay. So the hardest thing in this is just kind of like, number one, how do we do teeth? Then how do we blend all these shapes together and make it look good? There's some screws right here. The UV and the Mari stuff, you know that already. So let's start off with a cylinder. So we just create a regular default cylinder. I'm going to scale it up. And this is going to be the big gear, the one that was on top. And what I'm doing is just trying to size the thickness of the gear itself. So, oops, like that. Now you have to make sure that your stuff doesn't change. I don't scale it in the X. This is exaggerating it more than I've done the Z, because otherwise you'll get that. So anytime you do this, the X and the Z should always be the same. And the Y could just be whatever. Okay, that's just the thickness. So that one's going to be on its own. So for the teeth, what I need to do is I need to add enough divisions all the way around this in order for us to get enough teeth. So if I did like 200, that looks like it's probably about enough teeth if we're looking at this image here. Okay, it may have more, but 200 seems like a good number. Okay, and then I'm also going to take the caps off of the top. I don't need all these divisions up here. That'll just make things a little bit more difficult later on. Alright, so now this is going to be a bit of a pain to do. We basically have to grab every other face. Okay, so it's not that this is going to take terribly too long. It's just a matter of sometimes you mess up and now everything's messed up. So you just have to make sure you take your time to shift click each face. Okay, now just so you can see, there is a quicker way to do this. Okay, I'm going to grab the object. I'm going to go to my script editor down here. And what I did was I went online and I found a script. And this is one of the cool things about Maya, is that you can basically just go online and find scripts about stuff. So if I go to my Chrome, why have you gone away, Chrome? Come on. It's thinking on the other screen. And then it just went away. Yeah. Okay. So if I go here and I say select every other face in Maya, you'll see that we'll actually pull up maybe we'll pull it up a couple areas where they talk about scripts to select every other face in Maya. And if you look here, this is probably a better way to do it. This is the one that worked. And then this guy says, here's the Mel version of it. Okay, so what I did was I just basically just copied this, and then I went back to Maya. And then in the script editor, which is that button underneath the running guide, there's two kinds of scripts. There's a Python script and a Mel script. And so what I do is just paste the script in there. Okay, I Control A to select it all, and then I hit Control Enter. And let's see, this one gives me an error. Let me grab my faces. Nope, so this one doesn't seem to be working very good. Go back to my other one. There we go. Okay, so I just selected in object mode and then run this script, and then it worked. And you can see it selected every other face. Okay, very quickly. Now it did select like the bottom one, but that's not going to matter because I'm going to delete that anyway. Okay, so somewhere on here, I think it is this one that I used, the Python version of it. Face count equals MC polyvalue. Yep, this is the one I used here. So I just copied and pasted that into the Python area. Make sure it's on the Python area, and then you just run the same way. Okay, so now I can just hit Control E to extrude, and then pull that off. Hold on. Alright, I had to switch to face mode. Then I can deselect that one. Then I can extrude. There we go. And now I'll have the teeth pulled out. Okay, so let me just do that again real quick so you can see it. Sometimes you have to kind of play around with the scripts as you get them because they're all different. So we had 200 in the subdivisions, 0 on the caps. We made this big, shrunk that down. Oops. We copy that script. We paste it into our Python and run it. Then if we right click and go to face, then we can deselect that bottom one. And then we can hit Control E and extrude that out. So what's cool about that is that you could actually have 2,000 faces and it'll still work. Okay, so if you really want to have a gear that has a whole bunch of faces, very quickly you could obviously do that. So I'm pulling it out, and then I also want to scooch it down. So I'm going to scale it in the red only, and maybe even just pull it back in the blue direction a little bit more. There we go. So that looks pretty good like that. Okay. Alright, so that's pretty good right there. Alright, so now what I can do is I can start to work on this other stuff. Okay, so I'm going to grab these two pieces here. I'm going to extrude it. I don't need to delete the top now, so I'm not going to have to delete that. So this is the distance right there. Okay, so there's the teeth and there's that, so I'm trying to get that little distance. So that looks like it's pretty close to that. Okay, maybe a little bit more, maybe 0.7. Yeah, that's good. Okay, so I'm going to extrude again. Do I want to extrude again? No. What I'm going to do is I have these two faces selected. I'm going to shift right click and just do a bridge. What? Let's try this again. Grab the two faces, bridge. There we go. And that bridges those two faces together and it looks wonderful. Okay. So now that we have this, we have basically the outer gear part. And then what we need to do is build in this stuff. So now this could actually be a separate piece. It doesn't have to be part of that same piece. It definitely could if we want to keep it all as one. So let's go and create another cylinder. And the reason we wouldn't want to create, would opt to not create it as one, is that way it's a bit simpler to build. Okay, so I'm just going to shrink that down to about there. Maybe this one I'll make a little bit thicker. Okay, and the only disadvantage of that is that we won't get a nice bevel between the two surfaces. It's not a huge deal, but it could be something that would add a nice little touch to it. Alright, so what I want to do in this is I'm going to take my caps and put in two divisions here. And I'm in my top view. And if you look at this, let me go back to my other gear setup here so you can see this. This is another different picture of a different kind of gear. This is essentially what we're creating is this star shape right here. Okay, so what I want to do is basically have a circle right there and then pull out from that circle just this edge. Okay, so I'm going to shrink this down some like that. That should be good. And if I have 5 of these stars like I do in that picture, imagine that this is where 2 of those points would come out, and then this would be another 2 points, and then that would be another 2-ish. Okay, maybe not these 2, maybe those 2. Okay, so I have 2 space 2 space 2 space 2 2 space 2. Okay, so there's my 5, right? So if I change my divisions on here to anything but 20, I have to make sure that that still works. So if I go to 40, I would do 4, and then a space of 4, and then 4, and then a space of 4. Okay, so you get the idea. Okay, so I'm going to build one of these areas. Let me go back to 20 because it's just easier to keep it simple. Okay, and I guess I really don't need... No, I do want that one. I'm going to use this one later. Yeah, okay. So I'm going to go to faces here. Now if we look at, there's a pattern, right? So I have 2 here, and then 2 spaces, and then 2, and then 2 spaces. So if I just took everything that was part of one pattern, okay, so I'm holding Control Shift, I'm grabbing all of these pieces that are part of the same pattern, which is essentially that wedge, okay? So from my top view, oopsie, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 of these faces, and I'm going to hold Shift and marquee on the whole thing and delete those. So now I have like one pattern that I could use across the board. So I'm going to grab these faces here, hold Control and deselect these, because I want to grab those, and then I'm going to extrude. Just go to my move tool and just pull it up. Okay, and then to taper it, I just scale it down a bit. So we're just trying to resize this and maybe flatten it out a little bit. So I'm just scaling it some. There we go. There we go. All right. And maybe that's a little bit thin. That's definitely thin. So just thicken that up some. There we go. Awesome. Now there is a way inside here, if we look at the point distribution, you can see that this line lines up perfectly, and then this line is almost there, and then there's no line here or there. So I think I want to plan to attach this. So I'm going to grab those faces again, and then just scale it out until they're pretty close to those edges. Okay, so now you can see how this is really close to those edges there. Okay, awesome. So now let's go back to our picture. There it is. Okay, so there's our picture. So now we have this little inset area here. Okay, now this still needs to connect to something, which it'll connect to this thing here. Will have a little bit of a rim, so I just need to pull this back a little bit now. There we go. And now let's take this, and we're just going to grab those and extrude it. Go to our scale tool and just scale it down some, and then scale this in some. Oops, sorry, I gotta extrude it again first, and then pull it in some. There we go. So we want to have that lip there. All right. So even though we built that as a separate piece, we'll be able to connect it, and it'll look awesome. Okay. Then I just want to double check my edges here. You can see that now they're a little bit further away. So I just need to, if I go to the top view, you can probably see it better. Yeah, there we go. I just want to scale these in more and pull this basically like that. So I'm just moving these points so that they're lined up with where they'll connect to afterwards. Okay, and it's pretty flush if you look at this picture here. This is the edge that's coming off of there. This is the new piece, so it goes right into it. So we want to make sure that those pieces here are pretty flush. And it looks like they're pretty close. If I needed to, I could just grab the faces here and the faces here. And then I could scale these down until they fit the height wise. Okay, cool. Cool. All right. So now that I have this, I'm going to duplicate this all the way around. Okay. So if I just duplicate it and then I rotate it, you'll see eventually it'll just line up perfectly with that spot. Okay. Now, if I know that I'm having 5 stars in here. I know that a circle is 360 degrees. 360 divided by 5 is 72. Okay. So then I hold down Shift and hit D again. Hold down Shift and hit D. Hold down Shift and hit D. Boom. Magic. It worked perfectly. So that's awesome. So now I can go to my mesh and I can say combine. Okay, so now all of these are one piece. If I hit 3 though, you'll see that there's actually holes here. So even though they're one piece, they're still like not connected to each other. So now I need to go to Edit Mesh and say merge. Okay, so now if I hit 3, you'll see that we get a nice little blend right in the center. Cool. Alright, so now I want to connect these two pieces together. Now before I do that, I have to make sure that I have enough divisions in order for that to happen. Okay, so I need to make sure that each one of these has an extra division going down it. Now I could try manually adding it, but there's an easier way. If I just go to Mesh and say Smooth, you'll see how it adds an extra division right there. Now it smooths it out really weird. I'm just going to go to the continuity and just take that to 0. Nope, not the continuity. Roundness? No. Let's go to the attribute editor. So I hit Control A and smooth, preserve. It's odd. They changed something here. Smooth UV's keyboard or keeps like. Yep, they definitely did. Alright, so we're going to do it a couple times until we get back to before we smooth it out. There we go. Alright, so another way we can do this is under the mesh menu, the edit mesh menu. There's just one that says add divisions right here. And when we add divisions, you'll see that it automatically will add divisions right here along there. Okay, so some of these we don't need. So I'm going to go to Edge, and I'm just going to double click this one. That goes all the way around. And then I'm going to hold down Control and hit Delete. And that deletes that one. Okay, so now we are good. Now that is lined up perfectly inside there. I'll also need to adjust some of these other ones. So when we added divisions, it keeps the faces pretty flat. So like here, you'll see that these are just like flat straight across, flat straight across. So it doesn't actually round anything, which we'll have to do before we go on to our next steps. Not yet, but before we go further on. All right. So now that we have enough divisions, now we can start connecting stuff. Okay. So I'm going to go to Mesh. I'm always paranoid. So let me just duplicate this and pull it up. Okay. That way, in case I mess up, I still have a copy. So I'm going to say Mesh, Combine. Okay. So now I've combined them, and just like before, I need to merge stuff. Now on each one of these, if I go inside here, you'll see that we have these faces, and these faces can't be here. So I need to delete those faces. And for this, you'll see that there's gaps. If I try to do the regular merge on this, it's not going to merge the points the way I need them to. Okay, so I need to actually go to Vertex, and I'm going to highlight. I'm going to go to the top view here. I believe I was working up here. Yep. I'm going to grab all these points, and I'm going to go to that merge again. Okay, but this time I'm going to use this window option. And actually, that did a good job. Holy cow. Sometimes it won't. Okay, sometimes this number is just so low that it doesn't connect them, and then we just have to raise this number up slightly, like 0.01. Okay, and then it'll connect it. If we go too high, it'll merge everything together, and that looks odd, obviously. Okay, so that's perfect. So now when I hit 3, you can see how nicely this is going to blend right into that surface. Wonderful. Okay, so and the reason we did that as a separate piece is because it would be a little bit tricky to get from here to there in a nice little blend. Okay, so now we just need to do that to all the other pieces. So I'm going to go to face. I click on one face and I hit F to get over here, and then I can go inside and just very easily just grab the faces, and I'm just clicking because I don't want to marquee because that will select stuff on the back. Okay, and then I can go to my vertices and marquee them, and then go to merge, to regular merge, not to center. I missed that one. And then I always hit 3 just to double check it. And you can see this one I missed. So I missed that one too. I may have not deleted the face in there, and that's why it's doing it. Yep. So now make sure you delete those faces, otherwise you'll get some weird results. Cool. Alright, so now we'll hit 1. Go back to this. Face mode. 4 faces deleted there. Now it'll probably happen that you'll accidentally delete a face you don't want deleted. Okay, so just as an example, I accidentally deleted this face. Okay, if that's the case, we just go to our shift right click menu in object mode, and we go to the append tool. Now we can click on this face here, or edge, and then click on the opposite edge, and then hit enter. And now it patches it up nice and clean. Okay, so do the same little trick. And that's because I marqueed, even though it didn't look like I marqueed. I must have just drug very slightly, and I did it. Okay, so you see I'm merging them, and then I'm double checking it to make sure it looks good. So go back to face. Let's delete. Back up top. Okay, so I believe that's all of them. Yep, perfect. Okay. So now let's go to the top view. And I'm going to delete all these faces here. So I'm going to click on this one, hold shift and double click. And then I use shift and then the greater than sign. And I can delete that. I'm going to do the same thing here. Hold down shift, double greater than sign, and then delete. Okay. Now the reason I did that is because I wanted this to be empty so I can make a solid face there and then I could fill it in later. Okay. So I'm going to go back to my vertices. I remember these ones here. And actually every other one needs to be adjusted. So I'm just going to grab every other vertex. And this is what you want to do to make sure your stuff stays nice and neat. Because this will cause issues later. If you tried to make a perfectly round circle, it's not going to turn out. Okay. So I don't want to grab the center one. I'm missing one. Oops, these two. There we go. I don't want to grab the center one and scale it out because definitely that'll work for what we're seeing. But if I go to my perspective, it's also scaling them up. Okay, and that's something I don't want to do. So I'm going to grab just the green one here and just pull it out just a little bit. Okay, perfect. Oops. And I did the bottom one too, that doesn't matter. I'm just going to Control H to hide the bottom one. Click on it, Control H to hide it. Alright, so that's cool. So that works. So now I need to put that cap back on. So I'm going to go to Edge, double click, and I hold down Shift, hold down right click, and then go to Fill Hole. Do the same thing on the bottom. Okay. Now I can grab these two pieces, and I can extrude, and take the offset in just a little bit. Go to extrude again, offset in a little bit more. That's good. And I can't really see it in the picture of how big this goes. So I'm just kind of like estimating what I feel like I want it to go and what I want it to look like. Yeah, maybe something like that. Then I'm going to grab the two pieces and then do a bridge. Okay. So now if I click on this and hit 3, now we have our gear. Now it still looks kind of like chunky when I smooth it out because I don't have any bevels anywhere. So like here, obviously we're losing our stuff, okay? So now I can start adding bevels to things. So I'm going to go to my edge mode and grab everything. I'm going to go to select. I'm going to go to my use constraints. I'm going to say geometry. I'm going to say angle. Say 50 is our minimum and 120 is our max. We'll activate it and then say current and next. And then we'll just inspect and make sure we got everything. Looks like we got everything. Yep. So by having that range there, I just want to make sure I get these ones because these are not at a 90. These are at a bit more than 90. And then some of our ones here maybe at a little bit less than 90. Okay, so 50 to 120 is just a good range to go with. Close and reset, hold down shift, hold down right click, and bevel that stuff. There we go. 0.1. That should be good. And then maybe 2 segments. 2 segments is a good number to go with too because it'll really hold these corners. If you go with less than that, then it won't always do it. Okay. So I'm going to go back to object mode and I'm going to save because I haven't saved a single thing here. Sarcona gear. There we go. Alright, so now when I hit 3, I don't need to really hit 3, but now when I do, we'll get our nice bevel. Okay, now it looks like there is some like weird spot right here. That's definitely like a weird funky spot, so maybe I'll just keep this at 1. Yeah, 1 looks like a good gear. Okay, now here's where that, just duplicating it, where that merge is kind of a neat thing. If you go to here and I go back to merge, you'll see that just by the default of 0.01, it basically got rid of all of my bevels. So I'm basically starting back without bevels. So in case I made a mistake, I can basically just fix it, just redo it. I didn't get rid of all of them. Looks like there's a couple here that I didn't. So maybe like 0.02. Yep. Yep. It looks like I got it now. Okay. Okay. So really neat way that we can kind of reset our stuff. So I'm just going to Control H to hide that one too, and I have a nice clean one. So now I can say delete history. This is cool. I'm going to rotate it. Alright. Now, if I went with this, and I duplicated this, and I matched the teeth up like that, you can see there's not like a huge issue in doing that because these are pretty much the same, or they are the same size, so there's not going to be a huge issue in doing that. When we get into doing like a smaller one though, we have to keep that in mind too. Now I could, just so you can see, scale this down to a smaller size, but the problem is that these teeth are now out of alignment, right? So the huge teeth won't even fit in here for the little teeth. So they have to kind of match teeth for teeth. So the next gear I'm going to make is going to be another cylinder. I'm going to rotate it, facing the camera, scooty him down. That's where he's going to be. And I'm looking at, let me go to my front view here. I need this to be a bit bigger. I'm looking at the size of my faces, okay? So as I look at the size of this face will be the indicator as to what's going to fit, what's going to work. So if I put this, let's say right here, this face should extrude and create a nice little wedge there. Maybe a little bit bigger, so maybe like 2.25, or maybe just like that should be good. Okay, so this is a pretty good size to get to fit into that little groove right there. Okay. Now, if I wanted this to be a certain size, even smaller, okay, so let me just duplicate this so you can see it. Okay, so there's my current one. Let's say I wanted one to be this small. and then we talked about the teeth thing not working correctly. I would have to make sure that these teeth on here, or the faces on here, were a lot less faces so that the teeth would be bigger. Okay, so like that could probably work. Right, but obviously in this case we don't need that. Alright, so now I'm going to delete these faces here. I don't need the center faces. And then this one, I want to grab every face, not every other face. So I'm going to extrude, and I'm going to turn keep faces together off. If I pull this up with that off, or with that on, it does that. If I turn this off, you'll see how it separates each face. Okay? Now, this looks weird. I don't want to do that yet. So I'm going to hit undo. I'm going to offset each one first. So I turn this off. A little bit of an offset, like 0.05. Maybe a little bit more, 0.1. There we go. And then another extrude. And we can pull that up and then just kind of taper this in. Okay, and then I can just adjust the spacing of where this is at, right there. Okay, you'll see that matches pretty closely. Now we may have to scale it up or down a little bit if we wanted to animate this, but I think for the most part it's pretty close. Okay, now in this one you'll see that there is like two sections. It might be hard to see on the screen, but there's actually like one set of gears here, and there's one set of gears there. Like one of these spin, like when this one's spinning and it gets to the gap, it won't spin the top one. Okay, so this one spins and then doesn't spin the top one because there's a big gap right there. So you could do that too. You would just want to delete those faces beforehand before getting to this point. So when you created your cylinder, I'm not going to do it to the whole thing. You would delete these ones, and then you could delete those ones, let's say. Alright, is that an even number? Yep, that's good. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 8. Okay. So now I would just go into this and extrude, keep faces together off, 0.1, extrude, pull it out. Okay, so then I would get my 1/2 of this, and then I could duplicate it to the other side. All right. So I'm going to do the same thing I did before in the other one. Grab that circle, fill the hole. Grab that circle. Oops. I missed the hole. Fill the hole. Okay, then I can just grab the faces and extrude, change my offset. Extrude again. Push it in a little bit. There we go. And then just grab the faces and do a little bridge. I did not do a little bridge. Apparently I did do a bridge, and it just turned out like that. That's weird. Face, face, bridge. Okay, so when it does that, I just go to my attribute editor, go to my bridge, and then I can offset my bridge. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 8. I think we're getting closer. 9, 10, 11, 12, 14 is it. Okay, so I had to go to 14, and then eventually it lined up perfectly. Okay, so I just didn't know how to set it up, so 14 was the magic number, so there we go. Okay, so there's my gear. This one has like a little box inside it, so I'm going to grab another cylinder. I'll bring it down to this. Hold J to rotate so it clicks. Scale it up. Go to my front view. You know, you'll get quicker at jumping between all these views and working as quickly as I am. It's just a matter of staying in it long enough to practice. Okay, and this one is a lot chunkier, so I'm just going to really scale that one up. So like that. This one's out a bit like this. I'm going to go to the caps, take the caps off. And then I can scale this in, extrude again, scale it in a bit, and then extrude again, and then just push it in. Okay, so I just do that to the one side. This side you're not going to see, so that side doesn't matter too much. And then I'm just going to throw in some bevels on here. And then I'm just going to delete this face and the back face. Okay, and then what happens is I go to isolate. What happens is when you delete the faces, it doesn't try to smooth them. So you can see those back faces stay perfectly where they're at. Okay, then I'm going to go to this face, or edges, and we'll do our bevel on that one too. Let's save again while we're at it. Select constraints. Our geometry angle should still be here, so we just have to activate it and then say current. And then reset. If you don't reset it, it'll like lock your selection so that you can't do anything but those settings. 0.25, 2. Cool. Alright, then looks like there's another little cylinder in the center of this one. And what I do is I try to scale it up so that it fits in that hole. Okay, that's pretty close. And then I'll know it's kind of pretty much centered. Okay, so right about there. And I'm going to duplicate it because I'm going to need this in a second. And then I can just take my caps off. And they do have a rounded cap that doesn't do anything like you would think it would. Okay, so another little bevel here. And then I can't delete this face. I could, but I don't want to. I want to delete this back face. Okay. That way it won't smooth out the back. It'll just smooth out this area. Okay. Now for this face, I'm just going to take it here and shrinky dink it down like that. Hold J and rotate it. So now you have a pin in there. I think this one could probably be scaled up just slightly a bit more. And that means this one can be scaled up slightly a bit more. I think this one could probably be thickened up a bit. Alright, so if we're looking at this now, we pretty much have this thing set up. Okay, really nice. I think I want this to be a little bit more rounded here, so I'm just going to go back to this, and I'm just going to manually remove a couple bevels. So if I just double click this edge, or actually the middle edge, hold Control and delete. Now when I hit 3, it'll smooth that up a bit more. Okay, if I deleted another edge, double click the edge, Control, delete. Now you'll see we get a nice rounded piece right there. cool. All right. So now we need to do this plate that's holding it all together and these little screws right there. Okay, let's go to, where'd he go? All right, I need my cylinder, that back piece. We're starting to freeze up. All right, good. All right, so let's create a cylinder for that back piece. And this is the piece that's just holding the main motory area, whatever, the drive gear, together. Like that. That'll work. And then we'll just grab these edges, bevel them, try to bevel them. There we go. 1, 2. All right, so that's pretty much all we need to do for that. Just a little bevel on the edge and then hit 3 to smooth it out. And then we just need to add those screws in here. Okay, so screws are a bit tricky to do sometimes. I like to start off, this may sound weird, but they're rounded obviously, but I typically start off with a cube, and if I hit 3, you'll see how we get a nice sphere. Okay, so I'm going to go to Mesh Smooth, and then I'm going to do that twice. So I'm going to say Divisions 2, and now what I get is a pretty nice, it's not perfectly round, but it's round enough for our image. And what it does, let me go to the top view and move this over so we can see it, is it creates basically a plus sign right here. So if we're dealing with a Phillips or a flathead, very easily we can just select certain faces and create a Phillips or a flathead. Cool. Now this is a flathead one in there. I'm not sure why they haven't outlawed flathead screws. I'm just going to adjust some of these points because I want to make sure this is pretty straight. So I'm just going to scale these out a little bit. Grab these. Okay, then I'm going to grab these faces here and just scale them in a little bit. So you see how I'm kind of shaping that into the screw head. Now I can extrude it. Let me switch to perspective, it's easier to see. Flatten a little bit. I'm going to extrude it and just push it in, then go to my scale tool and then just flatten it. Okay, now that's a pretty deep Phillips or flathead. So let's go to our front view. Oops. Come on, object mode. Then we can just flatten this out some, and then I can delete this bottom half. And you'll see what we have left is a flathead screw. And then if I hit 3, oh my word, look at that. It pretty much looks like one. Alright, just a little bit of beveling and we're good. So if you need to do this a couple times, definitely practice it because it's something that adds a lot of depth to your stuff if you do it. Just adding a couple bevels in here just to kind of hold that shape a little bit better. There we go. Perfect. Now I just need to, I said perfect, I still need to adjust some stuff. I don't like how these like flare out at the end, so I'm just going to grab these and just kind of scale them in the blue and then move them down. There we go. Perfect-ish enough. Okay, so now I can grab that edge and fill the hole. And then now I can do a bevel on that face. Sometimes you have to grab the face, and sometimes it's easier to grab the face, sometimes it's easier to grab the edges. There we go. So now we can take this into our front view, rotate it with the J key. I'm in perspective. Where'd you go? There you are. Okay. Alright, cool. So that'll do it. Okay, so now this thing is pretty much modeled. Now it's just a matter of laying out the UVs for it. So let's go to our lighting and shading, use our surface shader, go to our color, and drop on checkerboard. Then we can go to the place 2D texture, fitty fitty. Then we can hit 6, and then we can look at how horrible our UVs are. Ugh. Okay. So now we need to go lay them out. So we do our automatic mapping. We look at the shapes of each of these, and then we size it up. Now it's going incredibly slow because I still have history on a lot of these objects. So after I'm done with this one, I'm going to delete all my history. Edit, delete by type, history. Okay, so now squares galore. Awesome. Okay, and sometimes it's hard to see, especially when you have so many pieces. So if I go to that arrow, I go back to the place 2D texture. Sometimes you may want to take this up to like 150, 150 to really see that you definitely have squares all over the place. Okay, so there we go, 150, 150. Close that. Let's go to this, UV. Oh, those look good. Now remember, if I hit 3 and I get some distortion, which I'm getting here, I have to keep in mind how I'm going to render it. So with this one, I do want to render it with 3 on. So I probably should. Let me check these corners here. So I probably should actually go to Mesh Smooth. And then, we had 6. And then go to my UVs and then do my automatic. That way it'll be nicely laid out. Okay, this piece too, automatic, stretch it out in this direction. Yep, good. Okay, same thing on this thing here. I want the smooth, I should go to Mesh Smooth. And then do my automatic mapping. So this process will just get quicker and quicker the more you do it. So I'm just making sure that I smooth out all the pieces of geometry that I want smoothed. I'm automatic mapping them and tweaking them. If these things are too small too, you can click on one of the scales. That brings up this guy, and then you can make it bigger. That way it's easier for you to see, like, are these lined up right? Looks like they are. Cool. Let's go to the screw here. Now I'll do one of the screws and I'll copy that to the other ones. Oops. Let's go here and then smooth it. Click the scale, scale the middle. Alright, So if we look now, this one's done. Okay, now let's also look at this. So that 150 is like insane. I gotta take that down. There we go, it's better. Okay, so if we look at the size of these, the squares are basically our texture. So the more squares that we have, hold on, one more to go. Smooth this out. Oops. There we go. Okay. So the more squares that we have on any of these pieces, the more texture will be on there, the finer the detail will be. So something like the screw, where there's a lot of detail here, but then this piece there's not, that's going to look weird. Okay, so all the squares should be pretty much the same size. So if I go to my UV editor, I turn my image off. There's my square pieces, or my screw pieces. I go to my shell and grab all these, and then I just scale it down. Okay, so I just grab this and I scale it down until they're about the same size as the other ones. It's about the same size. Okay, now it looks super small there, but that's what we need. Okay, so the same thing on any of these other pieces, one at a time. So basically you want to kind of pick one that you're going to stick with and then try to match all the other ones to that. So like this one here, I'm matching it to that one. I'll grab these pieces. And it doesn't have to match perfectly, you just want to get close to it. Holy cow, there's a lot of pieces on that one. There we go. Now this one looks like it's scaled up a little bit, so I'm just like squishing it slightly just to round it back off. There we go. Okay, now this one I actually have to go up on in order to get these to be small enough for the rest of the scene. Okay. Alright, now because I scaled these up, they don't fit in the box anymore. So now what I can do is grab all of the pieces, go to my shell, grab everything, and then scale everything down. This part's going to be a little bit slow, so just go gradually. So I'm just slowly scaling it down until everything fits in the box. There we go. And then just kind of nudging it over so it fits. Cool. Alright, so now everything is kind of like laid out except for these other screws. They're the right size, so everything should be good. I just need to fix those screws and then readjust all the points. So I'm just going to go to shading, use default for now, just so I can see my stuff. So I'm going to take this screw, hold down shift, click this one, and then under mesh, I'm going to say transfer attributes. And I'm going to say component. And what this does, it copies the UVs from this one and applies it to that one. So now, if I look at the UV map, here's this one, there's that one. Okay, so that should have worked. Let's try deleting history. Sometimes it just doesn't take the first time. Transfer attributes. Let's make sure this is reset. Component. And you're being stupid. Oh, that's why. I smoothed this one out. I did not smooth that one out. Okay, so they have different points. So Maya's like, nope, those are different points. I don't know what to do with those. So now let's try this. Perfect. So I click this one, click that one, apply. Click this one, click that one, apply. Okay, so now all the UVs are cool. So now what I can do is just grab these UVs and just scoot them over. Okay, so you can see that they're next to the other one. Take these and scoot these down. Take these, scoot those down. There we go. Okay, so all these are on their own. And then we can grab, you know, trying to get pieces like pieces together, things that will interact with each other. So now we have this stuff. So I'm just trying to line the stuff up so that it's nice inside this box. So I'm gonna screw stuff, set that down there, okay? And let's see what else we have. And you want to fit as many pieces on one sheet as you can. Oops, this one never got laid out. So let's go. Oops, I ain't putting bevels on this thing. How lazy am I? There we go. Alright, so now we'll do UV automatic. Alright, so I just need to turn this off so that I can adjust the size of this. So it's most likely going to be shrunk way down like that. Right. Look at how almost perfect that is. Okay, so now if we look at that corner, that's pretty much all those pieces that we have set up, that I have selected are right there. And then the only other piece we would have is this one, which is so big it needs its own. So I can just take this and just scoot it over into its own. Alright, so now if we look at our UVs, this one obviously not used a whole lot. This one is definitely used a lot more. We could always look at ways of kind of fitting all these into one, but like we talked about before, you don't want to fit everything into one. Like even these, I could grab all these little pieces and push them into other areas just so these wheels could be bigger, or even these wheels themselves could actually fit possibly inside there. No, it doesn't look like it's going to fit. Okay, because there's no faces here, so this could actually come into this area, this could come into that area, these could come over here, okay, but I think we would still have to shrink this down, and we don't really want to have to do that. Okay, and then when we do our camera angle, we're going to be pretty close to this, right? Like that. Alright, so then the next part of this is just taking it all over to Mari and then just painting some nice textures. You don't have to do a whole lot on the texture part. I'm not even going to cover that because it should be really review. But you're basically just painting in just some noisy colors on this. Okay, so you don't need a whole lot of different kinds of textures, because you can basically just find some similar textures like this and this look like they're pretty much the same. Then there is some like brushed metal here you could do in there. This, I'm not sure if that's like a hole or just a painted piece, because it's kind of off center. So whatever you want to do with something like that, obviously. Okay, cool. So then just save your stuff. Delete all your history. Export selection as an OBJ, gears, and then you can go into Mari and start painting your stuff. Okay, paint with a base color, and then come back and paint some detail stuff, and then we'll go on to the rendering in the next lesson.